The Republican Party is all for the people. They're all about building up the working class.
I'm 30 years old and I am trans. It took me a long time to realize that I'm not liberal, that I'm not on the left, that I am in favor of the individual over the group.
When people would ask me during the election, why or how could you vote for Trump as a Latina? And I would always say, well, you know, when he says that he's going to do XYZ for Americans, I include myself in that.
Now, I know there are a lot of people out there. I have a lot of good friends that are Democrats and lean left, and I love them dearly. But I honestly think that their policies and their views are destructive to our society.
I guess I'm more afraid of coming out as a conservative with my friends than I ever was coming out as a gay woman in a mostly conservative community.
I love being a Republican and I love being a Tea Party. There's no vitriol or hate over here. There's no racism or racist people over here that I have personally came up against.
Part 1. Multiple identities. When Donald Trump was elected president of the United States of America in 2016, I became intensely curious about right-wing people. Growing up, I wasn't curious about such people because I did my best to get the fuck away from them as soon as I was capable of doing so. My parents believed the New King James Bible was the literal word of God, that if I ever turned out to be gay, I'd go to hell, and that the earth is 6,000 years old. Throughout my teens, I turned more toward facts and logic because I found that with my parents, I wasn't allowed to ask questions like, why is being gay a sin? Why did God make things the way they are?
Shut up and pray, child.
In my quest for facts and logic, or whatever, I discovered like libraries and books. Then, when I was about 18, this anarchist bookstore popped up near where I was living in the Bay Area of California, and I started reading books by Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn, Michael Parenti. My parents' general closed-mindedness and abusive authoritarian orientation toward child rearing led me further and further away from them and closer to left-wing theories and narratives about why the world is the way it is. The left-wing stuff just kind of made sense, and I was allowed to question it. I guess you could say that the left opened me up to a whole new world. Anyway, by 2016, any ties I had to my own family and anyone with relatively right-wing views were completely severed, and so it was extremely difficult for me to wrap my head around why millions of people voted for Trump. And part of me just kind of thought like, well, f*** them, right? Like, who cares why these f***ing idiots voted for him? They're just a bunch of
deplorables.
But the more curious part of me didn't go away. I wanted an actually reasonable explanation beyond deplorables. And I didn't want to just like read other people's opinions online about why Trump voters voted for Trump. I wanted to somehow like get to know Trump supporters and understand them. And since I live in a super liberal city in California, I knew it wouldn't be easy to find any Trump supporters in real life, so I did what any normal person would do, and I went on Facebook. It started with me using my real Facebook account with my real name until it became clear this wasn't going to get me very far. I portrayed myself as such a left-wing nutjob that there was going to be immediate distrust if I tried to join right-wing Facebook groups or make friend requests to like super right-wing people. So I made an alternative account that appeared to be genuinely right-wing. Kind of dishonest, I guess, but it seemed like a pretty good idea at the time. And it was an immediate success. With this new seemingly right-wing account, I got access to libertarian groups, Second Amendment groups, pro-life groups, evangelical Christian groups, Blue Lives Matter groups, QAnon groups, incel and MRA groups, dozens of Trump groups, Republican groups, and of course, alt-right groups. The ones that are really into like ironic frog memes and stuff like that. And it did feel pretty invasive at first because as much as these people vocally mock safe spaces, they do kind of like need their own safe spaces. They have their own language and culture. So for example, images and symbols that make them feel safe include things like bald eagles with American flag backgrounds, Punisher cartoons. Lefties tend to feel safe with words like comrade. These guys feel safe with words like patriot. Over time, my newsfeed was nothing but right-wing memes, comment threads, videos, arguments, and I was able to observe and analyze the information after eventually becoming really desensitized to the stuff that I disagreed with or really disliked. And I should say that, yeah, it was deceptive for sure. I was using images like bald eagles and American flags and Punisher symbols and to gain their trust, and I got into their safe spaces, and I friend requested like thousands of them, and so I technically quote-unquote made friends with thousands of Trump supporters. But it all felt especially justified after I realized pretty quickly that I was not the only one here who was pretending to be someone I was not.
Sounds good.